execution mechanism, right? So we are going to study how operating system run a process and what is the mechanism behind uh, when we invoke system call, what is the mechanism behind that, how operating system executes a system call, and when we move from one process to the other process, how this context switch happens, right? That is what we are going to discuss today. And in last class, we try to understand how the process is executed, right? So the operating system allocates a memory image for the process. So every process will have a memory image. The memory image contains code, data, stack, and heap. And the operating system will set up the registers in the CPU, right? In the CPU, you have registers like PC, stack pointer, data register. So all this will be set up by the operating system. So once the operating system set up memory image for the process, and when the operating system set up CPU for the process, the operating system will go out of the way, right? And the CPU will execute the process directly. The PC will point to the current instruction and the CPU will execute that. And PC will move to the next instruction, the CPU will execute that. Whatever instruction pointed by PC, that will be executed by CPU, right? So this is how the process is executed. And we also try to understand what happens when we make a function call, right? So in a code, in the memory image of a process, we have a code. So in the code, you make a function, you write a function. So when you call the function, your PC is pointing to the function call. Okay, so when PC is pointing to the function call, then in the next time of execution, the PC will point to the code of this function. Your code of this function may be available somewhere else in the code, somewhere else in the program, right? It may the code for the function may not available in the next line of the function. The code for this function may be available somewhere else in the code. So when PC is pointing the body of the function, then what happens in the stack? What happens in the stack frame?
Stack stores the old value.
Good. Now at time step 1, the PC is pointing to the function call code. So that when PC is pointing to that function call, the stack pointer will point to that function. And the PC, when PC move from the function call to the body of the function, the stack frame will store old PC value. That is the function call instruction that will be stored in the old PC. That will be stored in the stack frame. And when PC move to the body of the function, now the PC is pointing to the body of the function. At that time, the stack get updated, and currently the stack pointer will point to the body of the function, right? Now the question is, why we need to store the old PC value?
After the execution of the function to return back to its original.
Good. So once the CPU completes the execution or completes the instruction of function, then it has to go back to the function call, right? So after function call, you have other instruction to be executed. So the CPU has to go back to that. That is the reason why we store old PC value. So in the stack, we'll have a return value and we'll have the function arguments. That is what it is stored in stack. Okay, all right. Now we're going to discuss important thing, how the system call is different from a function call. What is your idea on this? Do you have any idea how?
Yes. A system call operates on the CPU. So it gives the instruction to the CPU as to what process does it have to invoke next.
Okay, okay, fine. Now, how is a system call is different from a function call? it is different in few aspects. Okay, now at first you have 3 bullet points. All these points indicates how system call is different. Now if you read the first bullet point, at first the CPU hardware, all modern CPU, they have multiple privilege levels, right? Now let's say that you have a user mode and you have a kernel mode. Okay, when we are running the user code, when the CPU executes user code, the CPU has certain privilege level. When the CPU executes kernel code, it run at certain higher privilege level with more power. You understand this?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
That is, when we are running the user code, the CPU is set to user mode. When the CPU is executing the operating system code, then the CPU is set to the kernel mode. Now, what is the difference? What is the difference between user mode and kernel mode?
Kernel mode is not accessible for users.
Good. Some instructions only execute in kernel mode. What are those instructions? Here the kernel mean operating system. Some instruction executes only in the kernel mode. What are those instructions? That, let's say that you have, yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
So is it admin level privileges that
Okay.
those system calls?
Okay, fine. Now, if you issue an instruction to the CPU that allocates some memory, now what CPU does? If CPU is in user mode, is it able to allocate a memory? You send an instruction to the CPU to allocate some memory for the process. If the CPU is in the user mode, will the CPU is able to do that?
No,
No,
sir.
sir.
No.
No, right? And you also send an instruction to access the disk, to access the data from the disk, or to access the IO devices. So when the CPU get this instruction to access a memory, to access the data from the disk, to access the IO device, when CPU get this instruction, the CPU will check whether the CPU is in the user mode or in the kernel mode. Okay, only if the CPU is in the kernel mode, then it is going to execute those instructions. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Suppose if the CPU was in the user mode, the CPU will simply refuse to execute those instructions. In this way, operating system has higher privilege level than the user code. Okay. All right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is one difference between function and system call. Okay, can you please mute? Yeah, okay, all right. Now, now the second difference is, look at the second bullet point. The second difference is when we are running operating system code to make a system call, then we have to use the stack. Okay, when we are running operating system code to make a system call, then we have to use a stack. Here, the kernel does not trust the user stack. Why? If you want to execute a system call, or if you want to execute the operating system code, then the operating system does not trust the user stack. Okay, you have a line here. You have a user mode. In the user mode, you have a process. Some process is executing. It has a code, data, stack. Similarly, in the kernel mode, for each process, for each system call, again you have a code, data, stack, and heap. Now, when the CPU executes the kernel instructions, when the CPU executes the kernel code, it does not trust the user stack. Why?
So maybe it doesn't believe that the old values would be stored in the stack.
Okay, let us try to understand this. So you don't use the user stack. Okay, instead the kernel has a separate kernel stack when it is running in the kernel mode. Okay, when the system call is executed in the kernel mode, the process will have a separate kernel stack. Okay, because of security reasons, that they do not trust on the user. They do not trust what user put on the user stack. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So in the regular function, call, what we have done, how we jump from one instruction to the other instruction, we jump from function call to the body of the function. How we jump this? The user program, the user gives some address of the function, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the user program, that is the function call. You write the function call in the first line of instruction, and the body of the function is written somewhere else. So these two are connected. The user program gives an address of the function to jump to, whereas when we make a system call, the the operating system does not trust the user to provide the address. Why? Why it does not trust the user to provide the address to jump from one line to the other line?
As well, because the kernel is doing some sensitive operation. So for the security purpose.
Yeah, because the user may give some wrong address to do something wrong with the kernel mode, to do something wrong with the kernel code. Therefore, kernel do not trust the user to provide the address to jump to. Now, if we have to go from one line of instruction to the other line of instruction, if user is not providing address, how kernel jumps from one instruction to the other instruction? What kernel sets up? Okay, so the kernel sets up interrupt descriptor table, IDT, right? So the kernel sets up something called interrupt descriptor table at the boot time. Now, what this IDT will have? IDT will have,
The address.
yeah, it will have list of all the address of all the kernel functions. It's a table which contains the address of all the kernel functions for the system. No, when I say kernel functions, to read a data from the disk is one function. To write a data to the disk is another function. So all of this function Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
I'm very sorry for the interruption. Currently, I'm in campus, but I don't know. Suddenly, it was a break in the network. Okay, fine. So, fine. Uh, yeah. So the kernel does not trust the user to provide the address, right? So instead of that, the kernel sets up interrupt descriptor table (IDT). Now IDT,
So,
yes.
could you share your screen?
Okay. So the kernel sets up interrupt descriptor table at a boot time. Now this IDT has a list of all the address. It has a list of address for all the kernel functions. So what do you mean by kernel functions? You have multiple system calls, right? To read the data, you have system call. To write a data to the disk, you have a system call. To access a memory from the RAM, you have a system call. For all of this system call, the address are available in IDT for the kernel. Okay, so the IDT maintains the list of all this address priorly, so that when the user uh, request for the service of system call, then it knows what address to jump. The hardware knows, the CPU knows where to jump. It does not depend on the user to provide the address. Okay, suppose if the user wants the CPU to access the hardware device. Okay, when user make a request, the service request to access the hardware device, now the kernel goes to this IDT table and it knows the address to access the hardware devices. Therefore, it directly jump to that. It does not have to depend on the user to provide the address. You got the point?
Yes.
Right. Let me repeat the last point. When the CPU executes the user code, okay, if the user wants to perform some privilege operations, then the kernel will not trust the user to provide the address. So instead, the CPU will check IDT table, interrupt descriptor table. It has an address of all sensitive operations, of all system call operations. Therefore, if user make a service for accessing a memory, then the CPU goes to this IDT table and sees this and checks the address for accessing the hardware, then directly jump to that and execute it. Okay, this is how the function call is slightly different from the system call. All right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine. So the next important topic is, what do you mean by trap instruction? Do you have any idea on this? What do you mean by trap instruction? What do you mean by trap instruction? Okay, let us try to understand the mechanism of a system call, that is trap instruction. When the system call is made, okay, when the system call is made, the compiler or C library inserts, okay, the compiler or C library inserts a special trap instruction to run. Okay, what do you mean by special trap instruction? Look at the first bullet point. When we make a system call, a trap instruction is run, and this trap instruction is hidden from the user by the library C, from the C library. Now, what do you mean by trap instruction? Okay, what do you? Yeah, go ahead.
A particular set of commands that triggers that actually tells the CPU itself that what it has to do. It has to do.
Okay, okay. Now, what do you mean by system call? When system call made, when we make a system call. Now, what do you mean by system call here? Why we need a system call? To perform dash operations.
Sensitive operations.
Yeah, sensitive operations. The CPU wants to execute at higher privilege level, right? So when we make a system call, okay, that is what I mean here. When we make a system call, a special trap instruction is executed, and this instruction, trap instruction, is hidden from the user by the C library, right? Now, when I say system call, for example, let's say that read a data from the disk is a sensitive operation. So we make a system call to do that. So when we read a data from the disk, the first thing that happens is the special instruction is executed. The special instruction is run, right? Now, what does the trap instruction do? I repeat, when we make a system call, the first thing what happens is the trap instruction is run. Now, what this trap instruction do? What it does? Can you think of?
So does it make a system call for the CPU to execute in the kernel mode?
Okay, fine. So we are dealing with a system call, and we know that the CPU has to go to the kernel mode to execute the system call. Do you understand this point?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, if you want to execute the system call, the CPU has to check whether it is in the user mode or in the kernel mode. Okay, fine. Let us try to understand what happens when we make a trap instruction. Now, let's say that you have a memory image. We have a memory image which consists of code, data, stack, and heap, right? Now you have PC. The PC points to the instruction by instruction, okay? And you have a stack pointer. The stack pointer points to the current position in the stack. So this PC and SP all available in the CPU. Now what happens to the trap instruction? What happens to the trap instruction? Okay, the first thing that happens is move the CPU to the higher privilege level. What does it mean? When we are executing trap instruction, the first thing what happens is it moves the CPU to the higher privilege level. What do you mean by this?
Set the CPU in kernel. Good.
The CPU move to the kernel mode for the execution of system call, right? Now, let's say that, okay, the CPU has to move to the higher privilege level, right? Now, in the CPU, we set some bit, okay, we set some bit in the CPU saying that be careful that you are in the kernel mode. In the CPU, operating system sets some bit to understand or to say a message to the CPU that be careful that you are in the kernel mode, you are doing some sensitive operations, right? Now you have this line, okay? above to this line is user code, okay, and below this line is kernel code. Above the line is user code and below the line is kernel code. Now, what happens? When we execute the system call, what happens? When we
The trap
execute the,
instruction is
yeah, that is what, when we execute this trap instruction, what happens? Okay, look at this diagram. In the user code, you have a process which consists of code, data, stack, and heap. Now, when we make a system call, okay, when we make a system call, then we update the stack pointer. Okay, when we make a system call, that is currently when you run the user code, at some point of time, you make a system call. Let me repeat, when you execute the user instruction, at some point of time, you make a system call. So at that point of time, what we do is we just update the stack pointer of the user mode and we make the CPU to come back to the kernel stack. Okay, in the kernel mode, you have a process that is system call. The system call also has a code, data, heap, and stack. So when the user, when the CPU executing the user code, at that point of time, if any request for the system call, then we update the stack pointer of the user and we move to the kernel stack. Okay. All right.
yes, sir.
Yeah, we update the kernel stack of the user and we move to the kernel stack. We update the user stack and we move to the kernel stack. Now, what we do in the kernel stack? What we do in the kernel stack? Read the third bullet point.
Save context.
We save context. What do you mean by that?
So is it that you store the details, like the details of the stack of the user stack in the kernel stack?
Yeah, we just save the old PC and registers on the kernel stack. Okay, when we switch from the user stack to the kernel stack, in the kernel stack, we just update or just we store the context of old PC value and the registers. Right? Why? Because once the CPU completes the execution of system call, the CPU has to go back to the user mode, right? And it has to resume where it is stopped. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah, that is the reason why it stores the old PC registers in the kernel stack. Now, the kernel, the trap instruction basically looks up IDT. It looks at, what do you mean by IDT? Interrupt descriptor table. It looks up IDT table. There it figure out to which address I want to jump. Okay. All right.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Everyone understand this? The mechanism of trap instruction.
Yes, sir.
All right. Good. Now let us try to understand more on this because this is very important topic. Trap instruction is executed for different cases. The trap instruction is executed on the hardware for different cases. Now, what is the case one? When the trap instruction will be executed?
When the system call will be made.
Okay, when the program need certain services from the operating system, then we make a system call. In that case, the trap instruction run, right? When the program need an operating system service, then we make a system call. In that case, the trap instruction is executed. Now the second case is when the program fault happens. What do you mean by this? What do you mean by program fault?
A request for an admin access.
Okay, okay, so fine. So for example, the program access, you have a process, okay, the process has its own memory, right? Now this process trying to access some other memory, but it does not have to access to. Okay, I repeat, you have a process, the process has its own memory image, but it tried to access some other memory. Then we call that as a segmentation fault, right? Because the process is trying to access the memory which is out of bound. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. In a single word, in a simple word, we can say that when the program does something illegal, access a memory it does not have to access to. At this point of time, the operating system calls the trap instruction to stop the damage, because the process is trying to access some other memory, right, that it does not have an access to, right? So that time the operating system calls a trap instruction. It tried to stop the damage, right? And the final case when the trap instruction called is when the interrupt happened. What do you mean by interrupt here? What do you mean by interrupt? Can you read?
So like certain interruption in the process.
Okay, please read the sentences inside the parenthesis. When interrupt is happened, the trap instruction is executed. Now, what do you mean by interrupt here? The program is fine, the process is good, it is going on, but the external event has happened. External device need an attention of operating system. That means what? The program is fine, it is going on with the execution, but some external event have happened. For example, when the user has typed something in the keyboard, or some network packet has arrived to the network card. So when this interrupt occurs, no, the operating system has to take some action. So in the three different cases, the trap instruction is executed. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So for the system call, when we make a system call, when the program fault occurs, when interrupt happen, for all of these three different cases, the trap instruction is executed. Now, for all of these cases, look at the second bullet point. For all of these cases, the mechanism of trap instruction is same. What is that? Just we discussed in previous slide. For all of these cases, system call, program fault, interrupt, the mechanism of trap instruction is same. What is that? Whenever trap happens, yeah, please go ahead.
That is switch to the user stack to the kernel stack.
Okay.
And then uses the ID.
Okay. Okay. Fine. So whenever the trap happens, either due to the system call, or to the program fault, or due to the interrupt, we switch to the dash stack
Kernel stack.
Good. We switch to the kernel stack. We switch to the operating system mode, kernel mode. So in the kernel stack, what we do?
We save the context.
We save the context, right? Yeah, we save the context. After we save the context, the kernel will look into IDT table to check the address where to jump. Okay. All right.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
Yeah, fine. Now, in the IDT table, we have multiple entries, right? We have multiple address. For each system call, you have different addresses. You have multiple entries. Now, which one to use? Which one to use? Which one to use? Can you read that bullet point? In IDT, you will have multiple address. When you make a system call, the kernel goes to the IDT table to check the address. But IDT will have a multiple entries, right? Now, which one to use? Okay, fine. So when we make a system call, read the bullet point. When we make a system call or interrupts, okay, when we make a system call or when we make when interrupts happening, the number is stored in the CPU register before calling trap. Some number specific to system call and some number specific to interrupt will be stored in the CPU register before calling the trap. Okay, so that by using this number, the hardware knows which IDT entry to use. Okay. All right.
yes, sir.
Yeah, fine, good. Now, once we go, you have a trap instruction, and we moved from the user stack to the kernel stack. And how do we return from the trap? I repeat, when a trap instruction occur, we go to the kernel stack, and the kernel, the CPU will identify the address from the IDT and will execute that. And what is the mechanism to return from the trap? Can you think of? Can you think of? When the system call is made, it jumps to the operating system code, right? When the system call is made, the CPU jumped to the operating system code and executed. After the system call instruction is done, what does the operating system do?
So it again goes to the user mode, and
Yeah,
the kernel stack already had the value of the old PC value, so it can go to the line where to execute.
good. So after handling the system call or the interrupt, what operating system does is it calls the special instruction called return from trap. Okay, when you make a system call, the operating system calls a trap instruction. When the system call instruction is complete the execution, again the operating system makes another instruction, another special instruction that is called return from trap. Right now, so what is the mechanism here? Okay, so when we move from user stack to the kernel stack, in the kernel stack, we store the context, right? The PC, the old PC value was stored in the kernel stack, and we restore this context. Okay, we restore this PC value, then so that the process can go back where it was stopped previously. Okay. All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now this is the first thing happens when the return from trap instruction is executed. It goes to the kernel stack and sees and looks for the old PC value to go back to that point of instruction where it was stopped. Next, what happens is it changes the CPU privilege from the kernel mode to the user mode, right? So we know that in the kernel mode, the CPU executes higher privilege level. It has some more power. So when we are going back to the user mode, the CPU privilege changes from the kernel mode to the user mode. Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
fine. Now, when this happens, when we go from user stack to the kernel stack and you complete the execution of system call, again you come back to the user code. All this are unaware. The user process do not know all of this happening. Okay, it just think it called the function and it has come back again. It resumed execution as always. All of this process is not aware by the user process. Okay. All right.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Now
sir.
the question is, when you go back to the user process, okay, when we are going back from the kernel mode to the user mode, should I go to the same process or can we go to the different process? Can you think of? Should I go to the same process or can we go to the different process? What is your idea on this? We have come from user process to the kernel stack and you have executed some system call, and again do you want to go back to the same process from where you come, or can we go to some other process?
Sir, I think the program count will go to the next process because this process completely finished executing.
No, when the user process is executing, the user needs some service from the operating system, so it makes a system call. So we cannot say that it has completely executed the instruction. So when we return from the kernel stack to the user mode, do we want to go back to the same process or can we go to the different process? Okay, fine. Note that it is not necessary to go back to the same process. It is not necessary to go back to the same process. We can also go back to some other process as well, right? So before calling this return from trap, before we call return from trap instruction, operating system checks, should I go back to the same process from which I moved to the kernel stack, or shall I go back to some other process? Okay, we'll understand this by this topic, why switch between process. So let me take another 2 to 3 minutes to complete this. Why switch between process? Why switch between process?
the original process is too long.
Okay, fine. Let me put you some question before we discuss this. So let's say that you are in the user mode, you are in the user code, right? When you make a system call, what happens? The CPU is executing the user program, user code. When the user make a system call, what happens?
It switches to the kernel mode.
Good. The CPU switches to the kernel mode. Now, from the user program, okay, from the user program, when you are executing the user program, we switch to the kernel mode. Now, why should you not go back to the same process? After the system call is completed, why should you not go back to the same process? Why we need to go to other process? Okay, let us try to understand this. Sometimes when you go to the kernel mode, you cannot return to the same process. Why? Why? Because the first reason is the process might be exited or it might be terminated. Okay, so when this happens, the operating system cannot go back to the same process. Okay, and the second reason is the process has made a blocking system call. Okay, the process said I want to read some data from the disk, so the process is blocked. Until the data from the disk is ready, the process cannot proceed. In such cases, once if you are in the kernel mode, there is no point going back to the same process. Yes? Do you agree with this?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, if you are in the kernel mode, you cannot go back to the same process. If the process is terminated, that means what? The process is not available. Then we cannot go back to the same process. Or the process has made some request for the disk to read data. So it is waiting for the data to execute. So in those cases, the operating system will not go back to the same process. Okay. This is one reason. And the other reason is even the process is ready. The another case is even the process is ready to run, the operating system may not want to return back to the same process. The process has enough data for the execution, but still operating system do not like to return back to the same process. Why is that? Please read the sentence there. Why operating system do not like to go back to the same process?
Sir, because it has run for too long.
Yeah, the process have taken enough time, enough CPU time for the execution. At the same time, we have to remember that the operating system time shares the CPU. Operating system has the responsibility for executing multiple processes, right? It time shares the CPU. Therefore, the operating system decides that the process has run for too long. I'm not going back to the same process. I want to switch to the different process. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So in such cases, the operating system makes a contact switch from one process to the other process. All right.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me. Let me stop here. You can ask me a question now. Yeah. Please go ahead.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah. Please.
Sir, when we switch from the user stack to the kernel stack, what happens to the user stack?
Okay, fine. See, user stack will remain same. Okay, now look at this. You have a CPU. You have a CPU, and the CPU is executing the user code. Okay, and when here you have a code data stack, when the PC is pointing to the code of user program, and SP stack pointer is pointing to the current stack pointer of the user code. Now, when you are executing the user code, the user makes a service. It requests the operating system to perform some sensitive operation. So when this happens, the CPU has to come back to the kernel mode, right? So before it comes back to the kernel mode, the CPU, the stack of the user program just save the current value of PC, which is pointed in the user mode. When the CPU is turning, when the CPU is moving to the kernel mode, at which line the last instruction was executed, that stack information will be saved in the kernel stack. Okay.
So the other process have started.
Yeah, fine. So do you understand this?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So the user stack does the same job. It stores all the informations related to the PC when it moves from one value to the other value, when the PC moves from one instruction to the other instruction. And at some point of instruction, the user program want the operating system coming to the picture to do some services, to execute some system call. At that point where it is stopped, only that context, only that data, only that PC value will be stored in the kernel stack, because it has to come back to resume the execution where it was stopped.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, all right, good. So let me stop here. I'll be giving the quiz. Just you can attend the next classes. Just give me time for 2 minutes.
Sir, also your system time is backward by 10 minutes.
Yeah, but